Well, Asian Paints did what it did best, which is execute well. A statistic pointed by one of the brokerages is that there is a 50 at the end of Q4 by virtue of what they've done in quarter four, which is double-digit volume growth despite a weak quarter three. They were 15% revenue CAGR and a 20% EPS CAGR for the past 15 years, and a market leader for over half a century, which is now well-known fact. The question is, as it embarks upon newer hemispheres of growth, what is Amit Single's strategy of how the company could do in FY24 and maybe slightly beyond? He joins us right now to talk about all that and more. Mr. Single, great having you. Thanks for taking the time out. And went as per plan, or did Q4 turn out to be slightly better than what you would have anticipated?
So thanks for getting me on the channel. I think it's been an exhilarating quarter overall to that extent. Definitely, I think it went a little over our expectations. We never expected possibly the demand to be so good in the market overall to that extent. And as we see it, I think the demand conditions are auguring pretty well from a point of view of both urban and rural to that extent. And even the whole B2B business seems to be kind of doing extremely well, which has kind of given a very, very strong tug to the business, both at the top end and at the bottom end to that extent. Deflation also has been there to about 4% in terms of the material prices overall, and therefore that's added to the overall margins, which have been one of the highest in terms of what we've got in the quarters as we see it. So overall, I think the business has been very, very good, and I think it has been a very strong quarter for us.
So, Mr. Single, then therefore, 3Q, there was monsoon extending into October, and there was this fear of cold wave in North India in January. So I'm guessing all of that. I mean, you recovered in November and December any which ways, but Jan North wave or cold wave hasn't impacted you. There was a major difference in rural and urban for you in quarter three, at least until quarter three. I guess that also hasn't impacted you in quarter.
Yeah. So as I said, in quarter four, I think for a change, we saw both urban and rural centers doing extremely well for us. And almost the growth in both the centers is equivalent in terms of what we see. And that is how possibly we see that even the luxury and the premium kind of categories have done well for us. Obviously, I think the economy category, given the the rural sectors kind of doing well, has kind of outstripped the luxury and the premium kind of overall growths which we have kind of received. But as I said, not only the urban and the rural sectors, the overall real estate construction trends have also been very, very strong, which has kind of given an impetus to the overall B2B projects institutional sales, which has also outstripped the retail sales in this quarter.
The billboards seem to be pretty promising, Mr. Single, when I talk to a bunch of companies which get impacted by both real estate and capex. A cables company tells me that the government capex is still to take shape and form. I was talking to ABB India and Pidilite, who were telling me this government data seems to suggest that 70% of the buildings in 2030 have not even started construction as yet. It seems to be not just an FY24, which you said is promising for you because of the double digit that you've guided to, but beyond that too, it seems promising for not just your paints business, but all the others too.
Yes, I think that is correct, because today I think inherently, given the fact that India is a consumption economy, and housing is one area which always, whether it is luxury or premium or economy, I think housing is one sector which kind of doesn't really kind of stop to that extent. We have seen, I think, the government impetus from a point of view of infrastructure has been very, very strong. So for instance, if you look at from the point of view of the roads infrastructure, which is kind of coming up, there is definitely a paint which kind of goes as a road marking paint in that as well. So I think similarly, if we look at various sectors which the government is promoting, whether it is from a point of view of overall defense or railways and so on and so forth, plus the other infrastructural segments in terms of what's coming, for instance, the airports, the ports, and so on and so forth, to that extent, we feel, I think the impetus is coming very, very strongly, where the government spending has still been quite high as per us to that extent. It might possibly look at going down a little just before the elections or so to that extent, but we feel that this is a clear trend that for the coming years, I think if there is stability at the center, this whole government spending will continue. And not only this, we are seeing a lot of investments by corporates in terms of expansions, in terms of offices and factories which are coming up, which is also a very huge segment for us as far as the industrial business goes. And therefore, we see that this is a business there to stay, both from a point of view of construction, government spending, and overall general economy going up with respect to a lot of investment taking place in India.
So B2B, B2C, both looking strong. No wonder you guided to what you guided on the growth path. Could El Nino be a disruption, or you reckon even if that were to be the case, this guidance takes into account the downticks because of that, possible downticks because of that?
So, in our opinion, there is definitely a lag effect in terms of the monsoon, which really happens because if the monsoons are weaker from a point of view of this season, the impact would possibly start coming in the latter half of Q3 and Q4 to that extent, and not possibly coming immediately in this quarter. To counter it, we also have a larger festival season, which is kind of coming in because we have a longer Diwali period, unlike what we saw last year to that extent. And therefore, what we are counting on it is that the larger festive season is also kind of going to augur demand favorably as we kind of go ahead to that extent. And even if El Nino happens, what we feel is that it might depress some part of Q4 and Q1 of the next year to that extent. But I think possibly the guidance in terms of what we are looking at in terms of the volume growth for this year should show, unless obviously it is a drought condition which really comes in, which is there, which possibly is not the case.
Got it. Mr. Singhal, there was some bit of raw material deflation, I believe, in quarter three, which you then said you've not passed it on to consumers. What is the sense that you have currently? Is a raw material deflationary scenario a bit of a tailwind for operational metrics? Because I think you've guided to a conservative number on EBITDA margin, which is, of course, pleased the street. I'm just trying to understand your view here.
So overall, when we see there has been deflation both in Q3 and Q4 to that extent. Q4 deflation in material prices have been to the tune of about 4%. As we see going forward, there is still quite a bit of a volatility in terms of what we are seeing. Individual raw materials, just not only crude, but if you look at monomers, additives and solvents, they are kind of showing different kind of trajectories in terms of what we see, given the fact that the international consumption is also going a little bit haywire, given the kind of conditions which are kind of existing. So we feel that the volatility in the overall material prices will still continue. In fact, we might look at about a 2 to 3% increase in terms of raw material prices going forward to that extent. So therefore, at this moment, in terms of the overall pricing decisions, we are kind of looking, waiting and watching. And we think that we need to kind of really observe for the next about 2 to 3 months to 4 months to see in terms of which way this entire volatility is going to that extent, because the geopolitical situation still is on a brink to that extent. We don't think so it has stabilized to that extent, and therefore the prices can go anywhere. So we would like to kind of rest our laurels here at the moment in terms of looking at the coming 3 4 months for some time, and then taking any calls with respect to pricing as we kind of go ahead. And therefore, given the kind of escalation which we are looking, which could be anywhere between 2 to 4% going ahead, we are still kind of taking a stand, a cautious stand with respect to the PBDIT margins going forward. And we would like to kind of give the guidance of remaining in the band of 18 to 20% and not looking anything higher than that at the moment.
You're not resting on your laurels when it comes to execution, Mr. Singhal, because as I saw on the call and the comments that came out from you and your team members, market size overall expected to go high. You are certainly doubling down on capex as well. This confidence seems to suggest that you're not, I mean, while you're of course giving the guidance for FY24, that seems to be the kind of growth trajectory that you aim for the next 2 3 years at large.
Yes, overall, see, I think it is also going by the overall GDP numbers, which are kind of coming up. We are talking of anywhere between 6 to 7%. We are also banking on a stable kind of government in terms of looking at spendings which are going to take place. We are looking at increased demand with respect to housing, renovation, second homes. As I said, in terms of the B2B business seems to be kind of going well. For us, industrial business, both automotive, non-automotive, is also doing well. Given the way I think it is kind of auguring, we are putting that the paint market, which is currently about 70,000 to 75,000 crores, should be closer to about 1 lakh crore in the next 5 years. And that is the kind of possibly growth this industry will see as we kind of go ahead, because principally the per capita consumption of paint is still possibly much lower than the Western economies in terms of overall what we see. So I think from that point of view, the market still appears to be quite good as we look at the next 2 to 4 years going ahead.
Okay, my final question. Analysts quote you saying that you seem focused on scaling up the industrial piece and the home decor piece in particular. Now, could you talk a bit about that? If that is indeed the case, why so, and what does that do to your overall growth trajectory, slightly medium term?
So if you look at the industrial business, the automotive business is kind of dependent in terms of how the auto industry shapes up. But what we have seen between last year and now, that definitely there has been quite a strong growth which we have kind of seen in the auto segment to that extent, and which we see that should kind of continue in the next 1 to 2 years as it kind of goes ahead. Even the general industrial business for us has doubled in 3 years, and it has crossed about 1,000 crores overall to that extent. And there has been very, very strong energy in that segment in terms of what we are saying. We have invested there as well from the point of view of back end, from the point of view of servicing, innovation, and have really kind of capitalized and leveraged our alliance with PPG of US in terms of introducing new technologies and innovation there to that extent. So we are definitely banking on the industrial piece being very, very strong and growing, possibly, at par or even higher than the decorative piece in terms of going ahead to that extent. And that is something which we are convinced and we are focused very clearly in terms of taking that sector ahead. If you look at the home decor segment, we have kind of invested in acquisitions last year in lighting and doors and windows. Both those acquisitions have done very well for us, almost doubling the numbers in terms of sales. And now, given the fact that we are in all the categories almost, which includes furniture, furnishing, lighting, flooring, we feel that we have become one of the number one integrated home decor player as far as the India market is concerned. And we are very, very strong and focused in putting our integrated stores which are coming across the country. We have 50 stores now, and we are looking at taking this number to about 100 as we see the next 2 to 3 years overall to that extent. And given this impetus, we think this is a underpenetrated market, and there is no organized player in the overall integrated home decor industry. And this really complements our paint coatings industry as well to that extent. So we are pretty strong and buoyant on this home decor business, and we have already given a guidance in terms of that. Going forward by FY26, we are looking at this business contributing to about 8 to 10% of the architectural business. So I think, in a nutshell, both businesses, industrial and home decor, is something which we are pretty focused on, and we would like to kind of really grow this business in the coming years.
We wish you all the best for that, Mr. Syngle. Congratulations on a great quarter and a great year as well. It kind of turned out to be a good year despite quarter 3. We wish you all the best for many more.
Thank you so much.
The pleasure was ours. Viewers, thanks for tuning in.